Hello and welcome back. In the last video, we created this auth mock file. Now what we're going to do is we are going to use this auth mock file. And what we want to test these methods, the read method and the resend email. Now in the current user read method, what we are going to test is we are going to test what happens if this get auth user by ID returns the existing user, and what happens if it doesn't return the existing user. Okay, so remember we already set up our res.status and JSON right here. We set up our mock response. Okay, so if this returns a an object, okay, of type iAuth document, then we send message authenticated user and then we send the user object. Otherwise, if it does not, then user is going to be null. Okay, so this we are going to test this, and then later we test resend email. In the test file or test folder, create a file current-user.tests.ts. okay, so here we need to import requests response from Express. Okay, we will also need to import these properties. Let me open the mock. Okay, so we need to import the request auth mock, okay, and some other properties right here. We are going to do that. Okay, now down here what we are going to do is, because we don't want to call the actual method, okay, we are not going to be calling this actual method. We are going to mock it and then mock the response. Okay, so here I'm going to call jest.mock and then pass the service part. So where was this gotten from? This was gotten from auth services, auth service. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and then here as well I'm going to also get the method, because I will need to call it inside the jest.spyon. So import all as auth from. Okay, so here we're mocking the complete service, but here we want to use it to mock the specific method that we actually need, and we're going to see how to do that. Okay, and then as usual, let us mock jest.mock. Let's mock our library. Okay, so I will mock our library. Do we have it here? Yes. So I'll copy this, just pass it right here. Okay, and then also we need to mock our producer, jest.mock. Okay, yeah, we need to mock this producer, because here it is called, it is used here. Okay, we don't want to make the actual request, okay, or publish an actual message, so we mock the producer. So right here. Okay, so we mock this, and then when I was testing this out, I discovered that also we need to mock Elasticsearch. Okay, even though we've not implemented it what we need with Elasticsearch, but I think we can mock this at elastic/Elasticsearch. Okay, so we can mock this one as well. There's one other thing we are going to mock. We've not installed it yet. We are going to do it later. Okay, now that we have this, let's go ahead and start adding our describe. I'll add a username, and then I'll add a password. Okay, just for testing. Okay, and now let us create our describe. So the block here, we want to test current user. Okay, and then we pass in the callback. Okay, now let us go ahead and add the before each. I think we already did something like that. If I go to queues, test, email consumer, let's see. Yes, so we want to do something like this. So I will copy these two parts, before each mock. Okay, so I'll paste it right here. Before each reset all mocks, after each clear all mocks. Yeah, okay. Now, like I said, the first method we want to test is this read. Okay, so this is what we are going to test. And I will do that. Let me create a describe block so that it will just group it separately. I'll call this read method, and then I'll add my callback. Okay, and I already explained two tests we're going to add. The first, we're going to add when this gets alt user by ID returns an existing user, and the other case will be when it doesn't return an existing user. We want to see what the response will look like. Okay, so here I'll say read method. The first case, it should return authenticated user. Okay, that is the first test, and this is going to be asynchronous. Okay, right here. Okay, now let us use our auth mock. Probably let me call this auth mock request. Okay, so we need to use this. And how do we use it? I'll say const request of type request equal to auth mock request. Now we can import this. Okay, now what do we need to pass when making a request? Here we can set the session to empty object, because this is an object. So we need to pass what we actually need. Okay, for the current user right here, we can pass our the body as well. So the body is going to be username, and then username, password, and then password. Okay, this is the body. And we can set the current user. Remember, this is optional, this is optional. So we can set the current user. Now, if you don't want to set the current user, but you only want to use the params, then maybe you can set this as null and then add your params. But in this case, we only want to set the current user, which is the auth payload. And we have the auth user payload here. So copy from here and then paste it right here. Okay, and then I'm going to import this. Now we have our request. Let us just set up the response as well. The response, copy this, and const res of type response equal to auth mock response. Okay, so import this as well. Now we need to spy on this function. Okay, we don't want to call the actual function, the actual implementation. We only just want to mock it. And remember, we already imported all as auth. So here I'm going to say jest.spy on, and then auth, and then from auth we want to get auth user by ID, and then mock. We can say mock resolved value. The reason why I'm using mock resolved value, because this function returns a promise. Okay, so here we are resolving the response. And what is the response? We want to resolve it to return auth mock. Okay, so when there's an existing user, it returns an object of type iAuth document, and that is what we already have here. Okay, so I'll pass this in. But this here, it says cannot find. Let me import it. Okay, so this function here, once this method is called in the test, this function will return auth mock. Okay, because we are mocking the value, we are not calling the actual implementation. Okay, now let us go ahead and call this function. So I'll say await read. We pass our request and our response. Okay, so import from current user. Okay, here let me cast this, so as request. Okay, here what request type is this? Okay, from Express. I think I can fix this. Yeah, I will fix all those later. Okay, so the mock request is missing some properties. Yeah, from requests we are not adding it. So what I can do is we can just add unknown conversion. Okay, so this is going to first cast it as unknown and then to a request. Okay, so here the next thing for us to do is to expect or call expectation. Okay, so we want to see the response of our res.status and JSON. So we expect this res.status to be 200. Okay, you can see status code okay is 200, and we expect JSON to have this object with message and user property. Okay, that is what we expect this test here to return. So here I'll say expect response dot status to have been called with 200, and then I expect res.json dot to have been called with. Now what do we expect it? We expect it to have been called with message and user. Okay, so this is going to be message. So what is the message? The message is authenticated user, and then we expect user to be of type auth_mock. Okay, so this is what we expect the function to return if this get auth user by ID returns an actual existing user document. Okay, so we can go ahead and test this, but first let me fix these comments or these squiggly lines I have here. Okay, so I fixed the warnings. Now let's go ahead and run the test. Okay, so open the terminal. I'm going to run npm run test. Okay, so right here, let's see what's going to happen. Okay, let's see. Here the test passed. Okay, the test passed right here, you can see, but here I'm having some issues with import. Says you are trying to import a file after jest environment has been turned down. Okay, yeah, this is something that I can that will be taken care of later. For now, we just want to see the test. Okay, so this is the first. We expected it to return 200. If you change it to 201, it should fail. Okay, so the test should fail because it expects 200 and not 201. Okay, so if you scroll down here, you can see it says here we added 201, but it received 200. Okay, so this failed, so we are expecting it to have 200. Okay, so that is the first case. We can also add the other case, okay, where it returns an empty user. So I will duplicate this and I'll say it should return empty user. Now it returns empty user if this does not find any existing user. Okay, here we are saying, okay, if it finds, then set user to existing user, otherwise user will be null. So we expect this user to be null. And how do we do that? Here where we mock get auth user by ID, we are going to return an empty object. I can cast this as, let's see if we can cast this as unknown. Okay, I think it wants us to cast it as any. If we use any, then we need to, oh, let me see, never. Okay, I think never should work. I beg your pardon. Okay, so what is happening here is we are returning an empty object from get auth user by ID. Okay, so if that is the case, then user will be null. Now if I expect this to be null, now let's run the test again. Npm run test. Okay, right here you can see the test passed, the first one and the second one. Okay, so we expect user to be null. If you add something other than null, you are going to get an error. Okay, so at this point the tests are passing, but we will need to fix this issue. In the next video we will continue.